Hey, everybody. So I'm Max, and as we were just introduced, this is Alan, and we're kind of going to be, it's the end of the day, it's the end of the week, so we're going to be trying to talk at kind of a high level and not get too in the weeds, unless someone has a question in the weeds, and I think we're also happy to like chat about that, about the successes, pain points, and some of the other kind of, just how building privacy on Ethereum is.
Yeah, like what sucks, what doesn't suck, and what we've sort of been dealing with, smashing our heads against the keyboards for the I don't know. It's been half a decade. It's crazy. It's been 5 years I've been contributing to Railgun, so
Yeah.
excited for the conversation.
Yeah, and I think so I work for NIM, the company that makes mixnets. Alan is working with Railgun, and I think like one way that we're going to try and kind of approach this as a duo is that the lossy abstraction is the difference between the network layer privacy stuff and maybe the application stuff as well. Just something to bear in mind, or like the perspective that we're both coming from with it. So where should we start?
Jeez, I guess I think the easiest place to start probably is I guess on the storytelling side of things, right? Because that's sort of been like one of the bigger challenges of contributing to privacy in the space. For me, the why for privacy wasn't really on some sort of activism or like desire to help journalists and standing nations and this sort of thing, albeit these are very valiant things and important parts of the privacy ecosystem, and these people deserve privacy. But for me, it was really, really quite simple. I didn't want to be doxxed on chain, right? There was like this really sort of like perverse thing that happens in crypto when you do peer-to-peer transactions, right? You send somebody some ETH, and then you look at their Ether scan, and then like have like this cute jockeying for who has like the older wallet, or what centralized exchanges people use. And I think that like we really sort of like suffer from like a narrative problem. There's like a Railgun booth over there. There's a bunch of contributors, and I think that like one of the craziest things is like, people immediately say like, "Dude, are you afraid of the cops?"
Yeah.
Like, are you afraid of the feds?
Yeah.
Like, why are you one?
Yeah. Exactly. And then I mean, I think it was Adrian Benkesh in one of his talks. He was like, "Can you imagine if tomorrow everyone's Visa transactions just went online? Can you imagine the absolute chaos that would ensue? And also the amount of damage that would do as well, right?" And that's, in that sense, yeah, public transactions and all of this has kind of like lost the narrative war. I mean, like we were from the perspective of like network level privacy, then this the narrative is slightly different. It's one of the ways, like, how do you actually protect the people that also really, really need protecting, and everyone kind of in between, because the need for privacy is also kind of a gradient, right? As you could be, you're going to be targeted for doing a particular thing, all the way down to, maybe I just don't want everyone to know what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. And so I think you have to generalize it, right? And ultimately, we talk about things in like dark forest and anonymity sets and privacy sets and all of that stuff. And like, one of the things that was like brought upon me, and somebody pitched this idea to me. They're like, what if we had like Aave arc of privacy, right? And it would just be like institutions only, and they would have like an institutional dark pool. And it's like, well, that's really bad, right, for the institutions, because now everybody's just going to watch that dark pool and be like, that's nothing but banks. That's where the smart money is, right? And so, like, for on-chain, right, I think like having larger privacy sets that are inclusive of a lot of different people, effectively what it allows you to do is hide in multifarious activity, right? A lot of different actors. And I think that like the same is probably true of like things like NIM and mixnets, right?
It is. I mean, if anything, it's like a requirement on that level, because if you're talking just about surveilling a network, then it's this question of like, what's the biggest group of people that you're actually in? If everyone is only using a network for even like just Ethereum transactions, then yeah, you can't tell exactly who's talking to who at what time, but like you're still doxing that it's an Ethereum transaction, right?
Yeah.
But I think one thing that then comes with having to make this multifarious is like you then have to, your narrative then becomes really generic, right? Then or it has to appeal more broadly, either in like a series of sub-narratives, or you're kind of talking like and this does come up to the technical level as well, right? How do you also make it so that, this is a tension that we've kind of found in the development of what we've been doing. It's like, how can you support your, your power users, your privacy maxis,
Right.
but also at the same time make it easy enough for enough people to use it such that you can actually engender this like multifarious, basically like grow your anonymity set, not just in numbers, but also in the uses itself, right?
Yeah, I think that like, you sort of like, if you spread yourself super thin, right, the goal is like, it's like a balancing act, right? It's like, sort of like a give and take, and you sort of try to like cast the widest net that you can, right? I don't think that like Railgun is ready for like major adoption. I mean, I don't even think like Ethereum in most part is ready for like major adoption, which I'm sure somebody's going to beat me up after off stage here. But like, I remember trying to explain like Ethereum just in general, forget the privacy stuff, to like normal people, and they're like, let me get this straight. Like, I have dollars that I then have to have like separate currency that like I can pay to computers to do my transactions for me, or something like this. And of course, like, we've made like leaps and strides with like 7702 and lots of other really cool things that are coming online with Ethereum. But that stuff really takes time, and like even like the trickle down effect into wallets really hasn't happened, and like account abstraction hasn't come to fruition yet in large capacity, at least in my opinion. And so you sort of want to like figure out the way to get it close enough to like pitch black perfect privacy for your ultra tinfoil hat cypherpunk who's in the woods with a Starlink, and maybe somewhere close to your mom can use it.
And I suppose following that, then the question is like, how much you want to engage in decentralization theater as well? Like, what are you actually like meaningfully doing, and why are you doing it? And that is, I think, always going to have some tension with, like, someone is always going to disagree with that, because you have to essentially make like an opinionated decision, right? Like as a builder.
Yeah.
Or you have to make an opinionated decision in terms of like, this is the narrative that we're proposing. This is like the articulation of what we're trying to do and why. Like, we try and, the way that we essentially try and present it is that like, more privacy is good for everyone, just because you're mixing everything else. So like, even if you maybe don't necessarily like need to use a mix note all the time, the act of using it also helps out other people, right? Like, this privacy loves company kind of phrase.
Right. Yeah. So I think that like with what I think about it from like a Railgun context, over the last like 5 years, it's been mostly like well articulated whale bait, right? And so you get a lot of people who are like high net worth individuals who are pretty well down the rabbit hole, if you will. And I don't think it's really like sort of captured broad market adoption. Like, it's not a lot of average everyday users. I think over time, if we look at like the average transaction size that's like going and shielding into Railgun, it's sort of like drilling down over time. But this is like a lot of work, and I think that like if it's like a bit of a if we talk about the challenges, it's like a war of attrition, right? I mean, in 2021, a Railgun transaction was maybe like $175, right? Which, quick show of hands, who wants to spend $175 to do a transaction? Nobody. I didn't get any hands. And now here we are in 2025, and the gas is like 0.09 gwei, and it's $4, and that's thanks to Ethereum getting more efficient and cheaper in a gas economy. But Railgun contracts and all that research, right? It's nose to the grindstone hard work to make this kind of stuff like possible. And then you have like, how do we make it better and like easier for like builders, right? Like, if we want somebody to like integrate this stuff, like, how hard is it for them to do it? The reality of like DeFi, like, if you go around to the booths and things like this, like, they want you to integrate their thing, they don't want to integrate your thing, and that's like just the sad reality of it, right? If you're building some dApp, like let's say Aave, right, which is wonderful and has billions of dollars of traction, it's very unlikely that they're going to try to figure out how to use the Railgun community SDK, which is over 500,000 lines of code. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare, right? And so like, how do we deal with that and reconcile those differences? And then, worst of all, like, and on top of that, like, we have this sort of like, if we look at not just the dApp level, like, one of the bigger challenges to me is like the wallet side of things. We have this sort of like pervasive need for like data. One of the fun things that we've done is like Railgun contributors and researchers is we forked we forked Rabby and shoehorned Railgun into it, and there was a ton of stuff in there. Like they had a Matomo in there was DBank, GA4, there was Sentry. Like the list goes on, and like all of this stuff is just like narcware, right? It's just tracking you. It's looking at what you're doing. It's dealing with you, and then like even with things like Railgun, like some of the information retrieval that's run by the community is done over GraphQL, and it's a huge problem space, and like this diatribe that I'm going on is like it's like a war of attrition, right? It's a huge elephant that you're eating a bite at a time, and I enjoy it, but it's like shoveling shit, frankly.
Yeah, I mean that's because the question that's kind of there for you is, do you either try and like start from the ground up again and I don't know, in our case like build a browser or build some hardware or something like this, right? Where you're working on a clean slate-ish, but that's one huge pile to shovel. And then there's the other pile, which is kind of the way that we've done it. And I think like what you were talking about, and definitely what we've faced as well, which is like the existing guardrails that are in place, which are usually like security things, right?
Yeah.
In our case, it's like a browser. How do you actually like tunnel traffic out of a browser, in this case through a mixnet? In other instances, like most times, trying to do that, you're doing it for like a nefarious reason. Like you're maliciously you have like a dodgy website and it's trying to connect to something else, right? And that's what the browser is like kind of set up to try and stop you doing. And
rightfully so, probably.
Right, well, very rightfully so. But that's also the thing that everyone uses, like you could also kind of build from the ground up and build in isolation, but then there's another question of how big can your possible anonymity set of users actually be? But that is one of the, I've spent the last year kind of learning more than I wanted to know about how browsers work, because they stopped me doing stuff and trying to work out like how you can shoehorn a Mixnet client in there, even though it's actually for a good reason. The browsers, themselves don't care. They're just, this is a bizarre security thing that you're doing, and you hit a wall and hit a wall, right? Even though I think that is also like a very good way of actually working. Like you said, it is just a war of attrition. It's slowly chipping away at, the obstacles that have been put in front of you for very good reasons previously.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for like we got like it's like 7 minutes left, which is sick. But I guess for a bit of fun and spice, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on like the privacy theater in, especially on the network side of things, right? I'm sure you might have some opinions on that, but like there's a very clear difference in between something like ExpressVPN and then I guess I don't want to like talk bad about them, but like it's not as good as like NIM VPN. And like how do we like articulate those differences in a way that's like appreciable to like average people?
I mean, there's a couple of kind of easier points that you can make, which is, but it also partially, what you really need is you need like a plurality of these approaches, right? Because you're never going to have like a one-size-all approach that actually works for everybody. In the case of like something like Express, something centralized, especially something that's free, then it's quite simple. You're like, well, they're offering you a free service. How do you think they make money? They make money selling your stuff, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of an easy one.
I use Express for like trying to get like streaming services in other countries. It's quite reliable for that, but
exactly.
not for like important stuff.
Exactly. I think the real the kind of real education of the story there is like, what are you actually trying to do with it? Because there is no one-size-fits-all tool for privacy. I definitely don't think so, because and that's one of the things that also makes it so complicated, because as soon as you are trying to do something very specific, then you have to kind of know what you're playing around with, or like there is also sort of restrictions that come with that. Narratively though, I suppose a lot of it is kind of like representative of this event that's here as well, right? Like you can either try and drive people by fear, that will only get you so far, or that will only talk to like a certain subsection of people. And then otherwise it's the like positivist message, which is a little bit looser, but then, I mean, in a way that's also nice because there's more to play with, right? Like kind of getting away from the, from the notion of, like you said before, oh, it's private, aren't you worried about the cops? Like immediately being the assumption in that regard, like generally speaking, then the crypto space is still kind of like behind on that narrative.
Yeah, it's a really hard challenge because you're basically dancing the line of like somewhere in between, like the feds are out to get you, and like you should use a VPN so you can watch Doctor Who in the UK on Netflix, right?
Yeah, which is kind of the approach that we took with, we have an app which is called the NimVPN app, and it has like a decentralized VPN mode and a mixed net mode, and you can switch between them. And in a way, that's kind of, it's making the gradient easier to actually introduce it to people, rather than just saying like, here's a mixed net, and then everyone goes, well, what's a mixed net? Yeah, it's how to appeal to like your maxis, and like bring, and also at the same time like be able to bring people in from elsewhere, and they just go, oh, that's kind of cool looking, but it's not this immediate like slope of, or not even slope, just a cliff face
just
of
a
having,
wall,
it's just
yeah.
a wall that you have to climb up, of like having to know the basic vocabulary that you otherwise like haven't had to engage with before you can even kind of meaningfully know what you're interacting with, because there is like a fair amount of obfuscation around this as well, and you need the education there for users and stuff, so it's not just another form of trust me bro, because otherwise you're kind of in a similar way doing kind of what Express does, which is just them saying, don't worry about it, we can't, like, no one knows where your traffic's going from, and that's not true.
Yeah, except for us.
Except for us.
I think another big challenge in the last couple of minutes here, like one of the things that we should appreciate is that like we're definitely still in like making like pickaxes and shovels mode, especially for like crypto. Like there's so many things that like privacy mechanisms can't do that public mechanisms can, and like we have to spend a lot of time like researching and building that stuff out, right? I mean, so like we've demoed, you guys have maybe seen it, maybe you haven't, but like it took us nearly 3 years to figure out how to do like private multi-sigs inside of like the Railgun anonymity set, and we announced that, and that was huge research. We figured out with the help of ZK Knox how to do hardware wallet support, and that was really cool, right? But there's other stuff, right? I mean, so like how do you retrieve information from the blockchain, right? So like if you're communicating with an RPC, like how do you make sure that you're not oversharing with the RPC? Like, are you proxying those calls? Like, are you doing some sort of like PIR? Is that even available right now? We talk about private information retrieval, but like there really isn't like a lot of really clever ways to do that for Ethereum, at least for Railgun at this exact moment. I mean, so like there's so many things still yet to be built, right? Yeah. There's like a lot of really fun research things to do, and like I think that's like the biggest challenge is like there's a lot of like really sensational marketing out there that says like this is the best privacy around, and like you're gonna be able to use this for everything, but like the jury's still out on like a lot of the mechanisms.
Yeah, I think there's two things there as well. One is on the network side, there is both like research which is happening, but then it's also more of a cat and mouse game as well, because not only are anonymization techniques getting better, but like de-anonymization techniques
it's like
are
an
getting
arms
better
race
as well, right? It is just a cat and mouse game. It's like you couldn't, in like 2004, you couldn't really imagine the kind of like generalized surveillance dragnet that just exists today and is like very available and is being done by private companies, not even like governments, it's just private companies that it's farmed out to. So there's that, and then I think one of the things that you touched on there is like maybe also like a nice place to wind towards the end, which is, I think one of the challenges really is that you have to make privacy as like plug and play as possible, just in order to, like you said before, like with trying to get, someone as big as Aave to be like, here's a 600,000 line code SDK. It's, and we've kind of had the same. It's like mixed nets work, and they work in such a way that's very private, but because they're fundamentally quite weird. And, a lot of the work with the SDKs has actually, how do you make it kind of look and act like something a lot more similar to how everything else works? How do you make it as drop-in as possible for the people that are actually wanting to use it? And that, again, is like lowering the threshold of both required knowledge and effort to do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's been a lot of research in this year, and I guess like in the last minute that we have when we're up here, I'll just say that like it's not all like bad. We talked about a lot of challenges, but
it's going great as well.
Yeah, it's going swimmingly. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And so like if you guys, just a quick show of hands, who's here building privacy stuff? Cool. Hell yeah. So there's about 50% of you who should start doing that now, because it's a lot of challenges if you're into like really complex stuff and you're trying to learn about like where the next big like push is in crypto. It is on privacy, and so like there's a lot of stuff that can happen. So please do it.
Yeah. Start building, come and find us and chat to us afterwards, and thanks.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, well, don't run away. Let's see if we have any questions.
Oh, sick. Hell yeah.
Right. Let me see. Do I need privacy if I'm just degenning shitcoins?
So, send me your wallet address. I'll be the judge of that. No, I think that like this is like a really interesting question. I think like the reality is yes, right? There's like a classic adage in the land of shitcoining, and that is fill and then shill, right? So if people can like watch you fill your bags, you don't actually get the best price execution, right? And if you look at like traditional finance, which is more my background, like the answer is always yes. Most transactions happen in dark pools, and so like if we want to have like really much deeper liquidity and like real opportunities to do this kind of investments and call them shitcoins, then yeah, I think so.
And hit, whoop, hello. Another one here. I used a privacy project, and it was a fake private ERC20 rug pull. How do I tell the difference between real privacy and lies and scams?
Ooh, I love that. Right. Okay, so I think that like there's a lot of that in the space. Unfortunately, I won't hit anybody with a bus on stage, so come and find me after. I'll tell you all about them. But like, I think one of the things that you could do is like try to find things that are being actively developed, like a real community. I think one of the easiest things to do is like find social capital in the marketplace that you trust, and look into that. If you're actually mechanically savvy, right, that answer changes, but that sounds like it's coming from someone who isn't. And so like I think what you can do is try to find some social capital out there to lean into and say, hey, like if Vitalik thinks it's cool, maybe it's not too bad.
Yeah, I think also like because the space is small, right? The space is small, and most of the time we all do public events and stuff. So generally, if you're on a project, it's got no one on it, it looks kind of shady, and the GitHub is really dead, it's probably a scam. But there's metrics that you can also do and have a look at, and you go, does this look like it's actively developed? Is it new? Has it just sprung up? Are they saying who they are and where they're coming from or not? Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers.